That's fine.
I can't hear it because
Okay. Okay, so I have 9:03, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to the winter meeting. Thank you everyone for being so flexible. I know we've had a lot of changes, but here we are. And thank you for everyone attending virtually. A huge thank you. Oh, my name is Victoria McKennan. I am the GIS analyst for the city of Greeley for about one more week. And then I'm moving to Larimer County to take on a planning position. But for now, I'm all about GIS. Huge thank you to Chaffee County Office of Housing, Becky Gray and Mike Bischoff, our sponsors, Esri, Frontier Precision, Planet Geo, Pangea Geospatial, and Integrated Land Services. What's our schedule for today?
right on.
Let's see. There we go. All right, so here's our agenda. For those of you who haven't looked at it yet or recently, we have had an update at 1 p.m. or let's see. Sorry, I need to update this again. At 1 p.m., we're going to have Carol Lydic demonstrate the USGS webpage. We've got a few presentations this morning. I'm starting out with the presentation, then we'll have a break. We've got a couple of presentations before lunch, and then Carol's presentation at 1, and then we're going to have an interactive discussion, which hopefully we can figure out a good way to make that work with those of you who are attending virtually, as well as those of us in the room. Restrooms, I actually don't know. Who can tell me where the restrooms are? At the door to the left. At the door to the left. We are expected to wear masks during this event, so we definitely want to be respectful of the county's request for that. So I think if we have time, we can go ahead and introduce ourselves around the room. So Nick.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, my name is Nick Pugh. I work with All Points GIS. I do GIS work for the federal government, the natural resource management sector mostly, and also in the land conservation sector. And I live in Gypsum, Colorado.
Okay, let's go to the back.
Hi, Steve Hick, University of Denver.
I'm Deb Wilson. I'm a GIS developer for the city of Thornton and an adjunct board member for GIS Colorado. If you want to renew your membership, if you want to buy one of our lovely t-shirts, come and see me. I will gladly take your money.
My name is Pete McGee. I'm an adjunct board member of GIS Colorado and also proprietor, what would it be, owner of Integrated Land Services.
Hi, I'm Darcy Kopak. I work for USGS and I am the treasurer on the board.
I'm Scott Larson. I'm a GIS analyst developer at the city of Grant County.
And I'm Wayne Camp, and I'm an independent natural resource kind of a guy doing mineral exploration kind of things.
I'm Caitlin Bernier from Pangea Geospatial. My name is Jan, and I'm the GIS manager at Colorado Open Lands out of Lakewood office. Yeah,
Great. So we do have some upcoming meetings. We have our Elevations Geospatial Summit, May 11th and 13th in Steamboat. We have our GIS Colorado Summer Meeting in Leadville. That will be late July. And then our GIS Colorado Fall Meeting, the Great Sand Dunes in Alamosa in mid-October. We have an announcement from, let's see, Anna Riley. So let me go ahead and ask her to unmute. And Anna, if you're ready, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I can't be there. I miss you. I just wanted to tell everyone about the mapping contest. We are having the inaugural GIS Colorado mapping contest. It's going to be, the award ceremony will be at the Elevations Geospatial Summit in May. And there are two sections. There's a pro section and a student section. The pro section is open to GIS Colorado and YGO members and conference attendees and presenters. The student section is open to current students and students within 1 year of graduation. All the rules are on the website. That's giscolorado.org/mapping-contest. I can put that here in the chat. And if you have any questions about the contest, email contest@giscolorado.org, and I'll put that in the chat too.
Great, thank you. Rich, Jeannie, do you want to introduce yourselves before we get started?
Sure.
We just did introductions.
Yes.
Did we go around the room?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, hey, Richard Chamberlain, adjunct board member, GIS Colorado. Then worked down in Denver, worked for AECom, there 21. Happy to be here, happy to help out. Come by, say hi.
My name is Jeannie Hayes, and I'm also on the GIS Colorado board as chair for this year until April. And yeah, I work at the Bureau of Indian Affairs doing GIS, all that good stuff. And yeah, I put the Elevations Conference on your calendar. It'll be May 13th, 11th to 13th, and hopefully in Steamboat Springs. Otherwise, we will also have a virtual option, I'm sure, if things change. So yeah.
Okay. I think I can jump right in and get started on my session then, unless there's any questions or comments. Anything else to add? Okay.
Victoria, this is Dave Siddle. I had another calendar update.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So Geo Week is a conference February 6th, 7th, and 8th. It's at the Colorado Convention Center. It's the old SPAR conference. It's kind of an old school. I do believe that the exhibit hall is free, but lots of LIDAR and UAV and mapping and survey, and it's one of the old school conferences. But it's, so that first part of February, if anybody, wants to go.
Do you mind putting that in the chat? Some of that information?
Will do.
Great, thank you. Now, Anna, we looked into that. We weren't able to figure out how to turn off the chime.
You have to go in as an admin. Sorry, Anna.
Sorry. We might be able to take a look at that during the break. Okay, so let me get started.
Morning.
Okay. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Who's attending virtually? Okay. So my name is Victoria McKennan. I'm the GIS analyst for the city of Greeley. And what I wanted to share today was a project that we did over the summer for our We Warriors program using Survey 123. So a couple questions just to get us thinking. Why do we collect GIS data? And what do we do with GIS data? Maps. Support decision making. Stories. Feel free to jump in. Anything else?
Complain.
Complain.
Earn a paycheck.
Well, one thing that I've been really really interested in and working on lately is this last bullet, which is engaging the public. So I think if we start to think about our GIS data as a public resource, we can really expand the use of it and also the applications. And I think often, and at least for me, in my experience, maps are such a great visual communication tool, and they're such a great way to engage with people who, you can take really complex data and make it easy to understand. So I think the maps themselves are a great engagement tool, but with Survey 123, it's also a kind of shift in even the process for collecting that GIS data. Here's a quote. I like to start with quotes. Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. So the Weed Warrior program in Greeley is a way for us to have volunteers actually treat noxious weeds. And if you're not familiar with noxious weeds, they're non-native invasive plants that are really unruly and hard to manage. And so you can actually control them with chemical application, which is what the city typically does. Yes.
The people online are just seeing the first slide. They're not seeing.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Do a sound check too, just make sure they're hearing you.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? Let's see. How do I'm not sure how to.
Nick, do you think you can give her a hand on getting her PowerPoint work?
Slide control maybe?
I think if you share the whole thing in the chat, see what people are saying.
This,
Okay, people can hear me.
Yeah, it
Great.
sounds like people can hear you, yeah.
They're seeing your presentation though, they're not seeing.
Uh,
they're seeing the-
Share your
just-
screen,
Yeah,
not
stop
the-
sharing and, or just go to new share maybe.
That's
Yeah.
what
Okay.
they're seeing
Thanks,
your second
everyone.
screen is what they're seeing.
Yeah,
I
just a
turned
big
it
button
off.
on
Oh,
the
okay,
corner.
I turned it down. I just don't.
Yeah. Your screen number two.
Or do we want that chiming going on? Okay.
there you go.
Okay, good.
Good
Okay.
job.
Appreciate that.
And everybody can hear you also online.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And I really appreciate the feedback. Like I said, this is my first time doing.
Yes.
Yes, we're recording,
Okay.
I think, right?
Okay.
We were, it's all around before.
Yeah.
How long
good.
have you been working on?
Middle one.
You have to laugh.
Yeah.
That's also why we do GIS.
Oh, it's on your other
so that we
screen.
can laugh.
It's just up here. Go over to where it says more.
Yeah.
Yeah, stop recording. Yep, so we're good.
We're good, okay. All right, thank you, everyone. Thanks for bearing with me. Okay, so noxious weeds. The city of Greeley will treat noxious weeds with a chemical application, but they can also engage volunteers to help actually do some mechanical treatment of the weeds, so they can go in and cut them. And yeah, so we have 30 miles of trails and 1,000 acres of natural areas in Greeley, and the noxious weeds can be in any of those places, and they're really tough to manage because they're just so invasive, and they do have a competitive advantage over other plants. Okay, so the noxious weeds program is actually not unique to Greeley. The state of Colorado Department of Agriculture has a noxious weeds program as well. And we took direction from them. They actually have a Survey 123 that's available for other communities and counties to use. So what we did was we used their survey and we tailored it through Survey 123 Connect to make it work for the types of weeds and the locations that we have in Greeley. So I should back up and ask who's familiar with Survey 123? Okay, good. So for those of you who may not be familiar with Survey 123, it's a form-centric data collection form. It supports many types of data input, including photos, which is really important for the weeds to be able to have volunteers actually say, this is what it looks like, so we can verify. And then especially for the GIS component, we can capture locations. So they can do address or the site name, but we can also do a point to show where they're geographically located, as well as capturing polygons even in the field to try to draw where the invasion is. So the goals for our project were volunteers are out there anyways, treating some of these weeds. So we want them to actually collect data while they're there in the field doing that work. So we want them to be able to identify the plants, map the areas, and capture things like the abundance and count of the weeds. If they're doing any mechanical treatment, we want to capture that as well. This year, we were really kind of in experiment mode. We hadn't ever done anything like this in the city of Greeley as far as working with the public to collect data. We've done surveys for like your typical like public input surveys, but to actually go out and collect data that we might use from a more scientific approach was new to us. And so we weren't sure what would happen. And so for us, it was really kind of what's going to work with this, what's not. One thing I will say too is that in the city of Greeley, we have been trying to work on our security and making sure all of our data is secure, all of our, the paths into our servers and all of our information is secure. So while we were also trying to move forward with some security measures, we were also wanting this to be open and available to the public. So we kind of had to navigate some of that a little bit. For this particular project, we did keep it with ArcGIS Online instead of Portal because that was kind of our more secure platform and we wanted to keep it that way, whereas ArcGIS Online is more open to the public and things like that. So if you haven't used Survey 123 Connect before, there's two ways you can edit a survey or build a survey. The web designer is very simple. It's kind of a drag and drop for questions, whereas Survey 123 Connect is more of an Excel format. And it's, in my opinion, a little more complicated to use, but it can also allow you to do things like calculations in the background. And in this example, we could really easily share surveys that way. There's kind of a view of what that looks like, and I'm happy to go back if we have time and actually show you what this looks like. So here's how the data looks when it comes in. You can see there's different points all around Greeley. This is just a snapshot of the Survey 123 data tab. And each of those points has all that data tied to it. There's also the Analyze feature, which can compile the data into different and charts, so you can kind of start to notice patterns that way. And at the end of the project, I built an operations dashboard. So the Survey 123 data is, you can integrate that with other apps as well. So let me see if I can actually, well, I'll come back to that later if we have time. But with this operations dashboard, I wish I would have set this up at the beginning of the project because then you could see the data update as volunteers are submitting their data. Didn't think about that until afterwards. And so it's cool, but right now it really is more of a static snapshot of the work that was done. My hope is that they'll continue to use this dashboard next year and you can actually see the data. I think from a volunteer perspective, it would be a little more exciting to submit your data and see it populate something right away. Okay, so that's kind of my, and I guess I should explain, my role on this is really the GI, helping with the Survey 123, the more technical side of it. And so I did an interview with Karen, who's our environmental planner, and kind of wanted to get her perspective from really the volunteers and what it was like on her end. So.
Hi, I'm Karen. Here for the City Library Grants Program. Thank you for letting us make a presentation today. So we put
Hang on
together.
1 second.
When you share that, you have to share it with them too.
Okay.
So there's a chat box.
Where is it?
So go ahead.
Stop
and
sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And stop sharing.
Yeah, you can, of course. How are you, stranger?
So.
Good.
I didn't see it. Hang on, everyone. Oh, there it is. Okay.
So go to. Oh, you're still sharing, so you gotta stop sharing.
Okay. Stop sharing.
Yep. To share screen.
Okay.
Good to see you.
And then in addition to what Nick showed you, you have to share yourself.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
otherwise it just sounds like static, you know.
Okay. Great. Thank you. All right.
There we go.
We good?
They can see it, we can, but they can see it.
Yeah,
You guys can't see it? Oh.
can't.
I
But
I've
they
seen it.
can.
Okay, let me try to turn, oh, that's too bad. I guess it's more of a,
Well, you might have to stop and reshare because it flipped it to YouTube. Zoom is really bad about that.
okay, well, let's try this.
Hi everyone, I'm Karen Scopel, Environmental Planner for the City of Greeley Natural Areas and Trails Program. Thank you for letting us make a presentation today. So we put together our Weed Warrior program in an effort for several reasons. One, to engage local residents in stewarding our open space properties, giving them opportunities to go out and actually do things on the properties that would aid us in our work. So in addition to trying to engage more volunteers in our program, we also wanted to utilize their services in more of a citizen science type effort that would help us, with our limited staffing, begin to collect data on the weeds that we actually have on our open space properties. So that was kind of our goal, two-pronged, both in citizen engagement as well as beginning to collect some data. We recruited volunteers. We did a training. We trained them both on weed identification and mechanical control methods that they could easily utilize. And then we did the training on how to utilize the Survey 123 platform in collecting the data. So we had a PowerPoint that we used to kind of show them how to get through the process. So one thing I will throw out is that we didn't actually have to totally design our own survey that we were using. We actually adapted what the Colorado Department of Agriculture is using for collecting noxious weed data. So we just customized it to Greeley. So we just trained them in using that system. And yeah, it's a challenge to train people who aren't familiar with a particular application, although it is a simple one to use. I would say one of the other things too that we looked at was the ability to have non-employees submitting data, that the city could use in their system. So I know that we had to kind of look at that interface between, it's kind of a public facing side of the data collection, as well as, our internal security, for our systems as well. So I know that was one of the things we had to consider as well. I think the training overall was pretty good, especially on the weed side of things. But from the GIS perspective, I think the survey worked fairly well. I think there were still just some uncomfortableness of some of the volunteers in using it. And I think with the device issue, some of them just didn't want to mess with it. So, but for those that actually engaged in it, it worked awesome. We got great data collection. So one of the issues we did run into was getting the locational data, when they were out in the field. A lot of them just seemed to have challenges with making sure that they were getting that, that GPS location, of where they were, collecting the data at. And so to me, that was kind of the big one. I actually put together another little training thing on how to do that, but then I think I forgot to send it out to them. It was late in the season and all of that. So it's obviously something we are gonna, work on for 2022. But to me, that was the biggest one that we had was just people not being super comfortable with how to make sure their devices were set correctly. A few of them also seem to have just a challenge overall using devices, their iPhones or whatever in the field. So even the picture part should have been pretty simple to do in the survey. You just take the picture and upload it. I found it easy to use, but some of them just couldn't quite figure that one out. So, and I did just kind of think of one of the other challenges I had this year with it. So, when they were sharing their data, I tried to go in as often as I could find time to go in and look at the data that was coming in, and then but what I didn't have the ability to do this past season was actually using that information that was coming in to maybe direct some of our management activities, such as with our chemical applicator, who and that's partly not just me not sharing that out, but also their ability, because we share them with the Parks Department. So I have them for a limited amount of time. But one of the comments that came from the volunteers when they went out for the 4th or 5th time on the same batch of weeds, that were still blooming and doing all of this was, that I think they wanted to see a little more activity from our side using, their information. So I need to do a better job, number one, of looking at what's coming in, and then hopefully using that to say, hey, we need to get out to X site and spray this weed, because they've taken the flower heads off, but the weed's still there, and actually pruning off the flower heads actually stimulates the plant to create more. So we need to be out as soon after they, do that mechanical treatment to go in and do the chemical treatment. So that's one thing that I hope that we can improve on this year. So we did provide the volunteers with a weed identification book and some tools for snipping off the flower heads. And one thing that I realized later is I should have given them bags to collect in. So at some point I did get some of them some heavy duty bags, because some of the little, ones that they were bringing from home weren't very well set for these really thorny plants. So we, we're providing those. And then because these people, we told them they could go off trail. Typically we try to ask people to stay on our trails, but obviously if you're going to go try to, do something with weeds, you're not going to be on the trail. So we said, you have total permission to be out on the sites, around wherever you want to be. Talked about safety on the sites, watching where they're walking, avoiding, hazards and things like that. But we also gave them a little ID card, so that if anybody, kind of questioned who they were and what they were doing. And they also had hats that said Weed Warrior on it. So, we gave them, some identification things so that people could do it. And I do know one of the volunteers mentioned they were on one site and a neighbor came out and, kind of asked what they were doing, and they were explaining about, what they were doing and why it was important. But this person was just really concerned that we were going to go into this site and cut down a whole bunch of trees. And so they had to, say, no, that's not what we're doing. So you just kind of making sure that the volunteers felt like, number one, they could either address questions they might get from the public, or that they had the ability to refer those to. Especially the several of the volunteers that really committed to doing a lot this summer, in spite of the intense heat. They had a great time. They loved being out there. They loved, they'd get comments and questions from people while they were out there, about what they were doing and everything. But so it was just the kind of thing that they really enjoyed it. They didn't like the heat, so they want to start earlier this year and try to, get on this stuff before the weeds are too far along and it's too hot. And then just some of the issues with the technology side of it were the other things that we kind of heard is like, that was a struggle. We definitely have noxious weeds out there, which I knew already, but it kind of confirms it. So, I think one of the things I was hoping to get from the data is kind of really more distribution of where these weeds are on our sites, and what particular weeds out there. So we did get a pretty good selection of the number of species that we had out there. So I think this is about 9 species that they identified out there, which for noxious weeds that's a pretty good amount. And not all the sites have all the weeds. Eventually, as we get onto some other sites, we'll find other species that are out there that weren't on the particular sites they visited. So that's kind of what we learned is, yes, we do have these out there, and kind of distribution where they're at. Okay. I think for the short amount of time we were kind of like late June to September. I think that was pretty good for, what the volunteers were doing. So, while I always want more information, it was a good start, and hopefully we'll continue to build on that. They didn't find any weeds that I didn't expect, so I didn't have any surprises that way, which is a good thing. That's a good surprise to have, is that, they didn't find something we didn't know that we didn't potentially have out there. So I think the other surprise, I think, was partly how dedicated a few of the volunteers really were, and the number. So one of the things they were doing to help with some control on the weeds, mechanical control, was that they were like cutting off flower heads off of certain species to try to keep them from, setting seed and distributing more seed on the site. The number of bags of weeds that they collected was phenomenal. I think, I have that number here, 142. Like 55-gallon bags of weeds that they collected with that. So, that was, a pleasant surprise that they were dedicated enough to stick with that part of it. And that was one of the comments they made. So that's why they want to start earlier.
Yeah.
So I think with the lessons that we learned out of this year's is, number one, making sure we do have, the right training. Now we know what some of the potential, hiccups will be, is that we can hopefully address those at the beginning. So the volunteers don't get frustrated feeling like they're not doing what they, should be doing out there. So I think, doing that, making sure that we've resolved that issue with how to, make sure that they're collecting locational data, because that piece of data is pretty important for us, because I do want this, to be, GIS data that we have, so that I can eventually, have maps showing me where these infestations are, what's where, but without the location, it doesn't, I know they're out there, but location is one of the critical things I would like to do a better job of this year. I think it absolutely worked well. And we're a very small staff, there's 6 of us here full time. We've got 3 field staff, and they have a lot to do. And then as the environmental planner, trying to figure out, what we need to be doing to manage our sites, without data back there, it's really hard to, start to make those plans. So being able to engage our citizens to help us in that aspect, as well as getting them to become familiar with our sites, get some ownership of the sites, and become proponents for, a lot of the stuff we're trying to do. I think that actually works very well together. And it's been shown in a lot of programs where, different entities are using citizen scientists, to help with these kinds of things, especially with data collection. So, well, a couple things that I think we're looking at for this year is, number one, I want to hopefully get back some of the volunteers that worked this past year. They kind of already know, and we'll just make sure that they're very comfortable and we've resolved any, data collection issues with them, but also to recruit some more people and get them out there. So we'll continue to look at that, and hopefully the folks that did it and had a good time will reach out to people they know, and say, hey, this is a great opportunity to, help the city of Greeley in their, management of their open space properties. So that probably, we'll stick with that kind of thing for recruitment. We'll do some of our social media things for that. So, and then other than that, again, just kind of making sure that the training actually is hitting, what the volunteers need to have to be able to do a good job out there. I say, try it, give it an opportunity. I mean, there's a lot of, no derogatory, intended, but there's a lot of nerds out there, or techno geeks that, in our general populace, that would love to be out there, using that passion that they have and helping us do our thing. So, I'd say if you have a need for, getting data that you don't have the ability internally to do, certainly consider engaging, local residents as volunteers and giving them a tool like this to go out and help you collect that data. And yeah, I think it always helps. More information helps us do our jobs better.
Okay, so now I have anything I need to know to get out of. Just close this. I think stop the share.
Yeah, stop sharing, and then you should just be able to start sharing again.
Okay.
And just hit the screen.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that should do it.
Okay. All right, so another quote, the scientific spirit is of more value than its products. And I think Karen really spoke to this, how maybe the data itself wasn't the best or the most accurate all the time, but I think the real value of this project was the engagement with our citizens. So with that, we've got some time for questions or some discussion. So I have some, yes.
Victoria, does the state still want that data uploaded? I remember
Yes.
it had to be a couple decades ago. And they were, if you had a weed, and I believe it was at the 1 to 24,000 quad sheet level, they would mark that whole quad as having weeds.
Okay. I'm not exactly.
Do you remember that? No? Okay, anyway, and I wondered if the state, if you guys are uploading your data to the state.
Yes,
also.
we are. I think Karen wanted to do some QC and make sure that, go through the photos and check with everything before submitting it, but that is the plan, is to submit it to the state. So I do know that's part of why they made these tools available, is so that they can then get the data back. And that's also why, the survey 1, 2, 3 connect and doing it this way definitely helps with consistency. So everyone's using the same survey and they have the same, choices. We did add some to ours or make a few updates. It is a little, in my experience, a little more complicated that way. So I think it's easier to just build a survey from scratch and just do it that way, but then you don't have the consistency. So there's trade-offs there.
Did you have data needs, or what was the reason that you created your own in-house solution versus using, EDD maps or something else?
We did use the EDD maps. Well, we downloaded their survey. It's the same. I'm trying to think back. It was the same questions in the same format. We just used
you just hosted it yourself versus.
Yeah.
Okay, because otherwise you wouldn't get that location information, or?
I think we kind of wanted that data for ourselves, and then we also did want to do the QC part of it too. So, and really have this, the Weed Warrior program in Greeley have that.
I have an online question.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Point data only or polys too?
We did have there is the capability to do polygons, and we had, I think, 1 or 2 polygons that came in for the treatment. The polygons in survey 1, 2, 3 are a little bit more difficult to do. I think for our volunteers, it was easier to just pull up the point data and submit that. So most of it was points, but we did have a few polygons.
And then a follow-up on that, how did they handle multiple species in the same polygon?
In the same polygon?
Yeah. Or did you not?
Yeah, so typically we would see, and again, we only had a few polygons, and those were really for the treatment that was done. So like someone might outline an area and say, I cut off all the heads in this area. So for most of the species, they were each tied to a separate point.
Did you try anything with cheatgrass at all? Do you guys have a cheatgrass problem?
We could look at the data. I don't know off the top of my head.
Because given the over fire, I mean, that cheatgrass is not good.
Yeah.
Just thought I'd throw that out.
It's actually a really good application potentially, is looking at, fuel maps and things like that.
Did you guys ever think about doing beneficial insects instead of chemicals? Like there's an insect tree in Palisade, and they grow like a bindweed mite.
Okay.
And then you take the bindweed, and they grow in bindweed, and then you get bindweed and you wrap it around your bindweed.
Oh wow.
And it infests that area with the bindweed mite, and then you mow it,
and it spreads the bindweed mite, so it covers a bigger area.
Wow.
To kill all the bindweed.
I don't know. I'll have to bring that back to Karen.
It's a really cool thing to get away from chemical application.
Yeah.
If that's, near a water source or something.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've got the Peter River Trail, the main, they have huge amenity for us. So that's really good to know. I have a few.
Here's another question
yeah.
from Anna. Really, do you have to extract the photos from the feature class?
I'm not, so what do you mean, like for storage purposes or for?
Let's see, for use outside of AGOL, for instance, for reporting purposes.
Oh, sure. Probably we haven't, so for now, all of our stuff has stayed within AGOL, so we haven't, I haven't, packaged up the images or the data to send off. But that's a good question.
There is a little tool you can use. Those of you that are taking like any survey 123 training with me, I'll probably talk about it. There's a little tool that Esri has that will pull the photos you take in survey 123 out of a geodatabase and just put them in like a folder of JPEG files.
Oh.
So if anyone's interested in those, if it was Anna that asked a question, Anna, just shoot me an email and I can send you that toolbox.
Is it, so it's in AGOL or
It's
separate?
a separate download thing. It's one of those tools that like some guy at Esri just wrote the tool and then they were like, oh, this is a good idea. And so they threw it up on their website somewhere. If you just do a Google search for like survey 123 extract photos or something, you should find it. But yeah, it's a great little toolbox so that you just get a folder, full of JPEG files that you can then put wherever.
Cool. Awesome. Great question.
For your volunteers, did you just give them a map that says these are all the places that you could go, or did you try and say, hey, focus on these areas?
Yeah, so they definitely had sites that they could pick from. And as far as like within the site, we weren't too specific. That's the other thing about, working with like natural resources is they can migrate around and move a lot. So we did have sites that we identified for them, but we didn't try to limit them or prioritize even where they were going.
What did you all using GPS hardware specifically for collecting the points? Were you all pulling the locations off the phone?
Yeah, so it was all off the phone, which as Karen was kind of talking about, that was a bigger challenge than I was expecting. And maybe it's because I'm used to working with people who do this as part of their jobs, and they have tablets and iPhones that the city manages. So it's not, there's a lot that I take for granted, or I did take for granted in this case, because I was out there doing some training and it was like, how do I find my location? And, so really some of the more basic stuff that, and also like, I don't know how to do this stuff on an Android. So people showed up at Androids and I was like, I don't know, like, this is a whole new, thing to learn for me. So yeah, we didn't, and I would say like the accuracy as far as location was less important. So we definitely wanted to know where the weeds were, and which sites they were on. But as far as like super specific high accuracy, that wasn't as important to us. But even yeah, just getting the right ballpark was a challenge sometimes.
I assume most of your volunteers, having done this myself, I assume most of your volunteers were retirement age.
Mostly.
You can present technical challenges.
Not all of them.
Mentally challenged. And tend to wander off and get coffee and donuts.
Okay.
No, they're very good at identifying weeds.
To Nick's point, I do this stuff all the time, and I don't consider myself that age, but that's the struggle I have, is finding some of this stuff. So how do you find your volunteers? Where do you post this stuff?
Yeah, and I thought a lot about that, because even like doing kind of the debrief with Karen, I was like, I wish we had some volunteers in here that we were hearing from. I wish, and so I'm really hoping that we can use the dashboard and use like just some more social media and just really help get the word out about it. But then I also would hope that our volunteers had a good experience and they'll, get friends to do it.
Do you post it to the listserv, the GIS Colorado listserv, and let people know that,
Oh, yeah,
and even YGO, because
Yeah.
you are very close to that Wyoming border.
yeah, that's a good idea. We did not do that, but yeah. Yeah,
Well, and in terms of looking for volunteers, I think every park, every trail, there's always a Friends of organization that is willing to volunteer. And in our neighborhood, I'm gonna talk to you about this, but we want to do this kind of project in our neighborhood, but we have a garden club and they're all over it. So for us to find volunteers, it's not a problem. There's
yeah,
always people that have a heartfelt interest in whatever area you're looking at.
yeah.
Yeah, along those same lines, you've got, college community too in Greeley.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
UNC.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
between UNC and Ames and so forth and so on. There are, clubs and groups and organizations there that I'm sure would be willing to be involved in that kind of program.
I mean, and taking that a little further, if you get other GIS professionals that can kind of help when they're having trouble out there, the GISP credit aspect maybe, would be
Okay.
something to advertise about. Because I'm sure you
Yeah.
can make that, this relates to that and it can fit into one of those categories.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's kind of the community.
Yeah, community involvement or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. That's a-
Definitely.
Community service or?
Yeah,
No, gosh, no.
Definitely look up the CSU extension.
Yeah,
That's like their charge.
Yeah.
The CSU, like they're the ones that designed that little Noxious Weeds of Colorado book.
yeah.
They're the ones kind of leading all the state weed
I
mapping
think they were
efforts.
actually out there at a training that we did.
Okay.
So they're definitely involved with that. I think it's more just like the actual getting the data into the survey and correctly was kind of the challenge. But we get
And
people
Nick,
that,
there's a lot of people online who would like for you to post that information about extracting the photos
Okay.
to the listserv if you could.
Yeah, I can do that. Sure.
Yeah, that would be great.
No problem.
I was just wondering if you had staff out there doing survey 1, 2, 3 with the volunteers and you could kind of compare like staff data versus volunteer data and see what are the hiccups that weren't just outside of not understanding the tablet or the phone, but hiccups that like were maybe actually with using survey 1, 2, 3 or any challenges with setting it up and then realizing, oh, I wish we had done this.
yeah, that's a great idea. I thought another thing too is we kind of did the trainings and then let them loose. And so it would have been, I think, maybe more helpful to say every Friday morning, we're going to be going out, have some staff and come with us and we can show them and kind of have more of a standing training, I guess, or just help. Would be good.
Was there any data that came from staff from this project?
A few from Karen that she submitted, mostly just test data. And, I really thought she brought up such a good point about, people are out there, they're submitting the data and they're saying, hey, how come you're not doing anything with my data? Like I told you there's weeds here and how come you're not spraying? And so I think, yeah, for our first year, just kind of seeing what would happen, it was good, but we definitely learned a lot of how we could actually make this a more meaningful project, honestly, just having people see the results of their work. I think.
And we have one more question from online. You may have mentioned, are the collection sites in the city of Greeley open space areas or other?
Yep, they're open space areas. Yes.
They're open space?
Yep, open space areas. And a lot of spaces along the trail too. So yeah, and she did mention they were allowed to go off trail. And so that's kind of also why they needed to be able to answer questions if anyone, what are you doing off trail? So here's some other just prompts that I came up with if anyone has some ideas or thoughts they want to share. But this has been, you guys have some great ideas. I knew that you would.
So you had mentioned some concerns about data, like integrity and protecting that data. Is there anything that you've putting that dashboard up, say next year, in a public facing place where like if you've got those real type A volunteers who want to see like how many weeds did I knock out today, they can go to that dashboard and maybe see that. And sort of get
Yeah,
that
I would.
report.
Yeah, I think the dashboard, I would love to see that public facing, and really, I would love to see that like on our social media and just, and there's, you know, really make it something that people are engaging with. And I think even with our employees, they like to see that kind of stuff too. Like they're going out, you know, I worked really closely with our streets, and they were doing a sidewalk inventory, and so it felt really good for them to come back in after inventorying a site and seeing, oh, look at the bar, you know, all my work, all my data. It actually, you can see that. So I think I really like dashboards. I think that's one of the coolest integrations is between the Survey 123 and the dashboards, and just really doing the real-time updates.
One place you might look for volunteers, I know, is the school district. I know Eagle County Schools had a pretty successful program with elementary school kids and doing it was a Weed Warriors project as well.
Wow.
They're just really involved. They really, I don't know a lot about it. I just read like a few newspaper articles and things. It seemed like it was really successful. The kids really like it.
And kids are really good at this kind of stuff.
Yeah, kids are great at it. You can make them, you know, think that it's fun.
Yeah.
I think it was pretty successful, educational.
Anything else from online? I'm looking at you. Okay. Well, thank you. I think we can probably go ahead and go to break now, and I will take this time to, you know, make sure I understand how to do all of the Zoom stuff. So thank you all for your patience with me. Appreciate it.
Good presentation and great info from the online people.
Oh, awesome. Yay.
And we've got 24 people online.
Nice.
So what's your goal?
And I figured out how to
Want to stop sharing?
Yes.
Pause the sharing. And then pause the recording.
Yeah, we already did that.
Okay, we got that down off of our account, Larson, so we should have that.
Yeah. Deb told me we did.
Okay, so did you get to do
This house is nice.
Well, how long?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're.
Is this over here?
Yeah, I was having to. I love it, yeah.
I know, but the last time I said, there we go. It's better.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's in one more time. Oh, okay. Sorry, I was just looking in the wrong.
Oh, I didn't do that.
Don't forget to start.
Yes,
So what?
Yeah, she's sort of like, and wants to be able to, when it goes to site content. Jackie, but he wants it to. So there's two different. I want to put a specific. So there has to be two separate. This one for each of those other.
So you want a field visit check if both of those are checked or?
Okay, I'm
Good. Cool to think that that's normal to have these guys here.
But yeah,
If they check.
that's where it went. So we did this like.
Oh.
We did this like.
And on the other side, it would put a check box. And then I have a separate view of that for vision. So if I populate that.
Yeah, so on exhibit E, if the checkbox, the box is checked in exhibit E, you want the checkbox in combined? Okay.
So this is what I have. And then if it's not.
We had a couple chili bears.
I know it's working.
Gotcha.
but it's
Yeah.
not.
And I wore leggings, pajamas, this long sleeve and a sweatshirt.
Yeah.
If it's not a.
It is.
Is this formula
Yeah.
down here, like are these checkbox codes coming from?
You know, did that fall. There were seats. I was taking them from here and probably the other.
Okay.
But I like back to the other shop. And I'm not sure why. But this one, this 90010.
This is like all the things.
This is. I'm looking at a parcel number. It's over here. It's and I have it just from. Yes.
That's where it's at. So you've got OQ, right? So you need a 3, yeah. So if you hit, go back to the so it's starting here and going 16. So you're starting here, so if Excel starts with 1 instead of 0. So 1, 2, 3.
So because I got rid of all this.
Yeah, if you had your, your range starting at 8, then it's 16.
And then this is, I mean, this is, you go to the. Yeah. So this one is the reduction in coverage. This is. Because it almost seems like it applies on all stuff except.
I always think when I.
But anyway, this is the actual. This is the actual.
That's just saying, instead of pound sign. I don't need it.
So it'll pop up in the and that's the password. And it should,
What is that?
I never.
So when I was it's like really fast.
Minimum.
I started to things are better. But I did like. And like.
And then I have.
London.
So this was one thing I was wondering about. If
just changed.
Yeah,
I was gonna give you this, so I don't lose it. I thought I did check. I'm not, that's the hotel receipt,
Gotcha.
so.
You go to where this one is the 900.
So she's looking in her. Trying to figure out how.
So I should be. Even earlier than I actually thought.
But so she said, and it comes up.
Probably where it's
Test.
yeah, I was pretty cool. What is the value?
Well, I was gonna say, and that's what I have.
I don't know. But I don't think that I was like that. You know what I mean? It's like,
It's kind of neat to like.
yeah.
What if in that box you write healing check that, just to see, make sure. That's not
Wait, cool.
Yeah.
That sounds it.
Yeah.
So lucky also. Get it
I had 1 month later. Yeah.
You know, at least my sister-in-law is there.
Yeah.
It does look fun.
You go visit.
You know.
I haven't tried. We've done the saran wrap ball, we've done, you know, theme trade, things like stuff, yeah, we kids at Christmas.
Pandemic.
We just scavenger hunt one year, for their gift
I
cards.
want to start.
I put all their gift cards in an envelope and then I hid clues around the house, so we had to go on a scavenger hunt. And there's one clue to the next.
Because you're still doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're a little bit longer because Carol Lydic
So we're about 15 minutes, but we're gonna extend to between 2 and 3.
And when do we check, can you just kind of
I'm
review
gonna
it?
check in at 3.
Yeah.
Cool. It'll go and look up an empty cell.
Wait, what?
It's gonna do.
Right.
So like at the end, once we get the VLOOKUP going, you can write something, getting all of them, that says, if it's empty, don't do anything. If it's full,
By the time we get
can
there.
you click on the edges?
Yeah.
So some of these cabbages, you can check, you can check it early up.
You have to ask them that
Okay,
day.
listen, we had a couple this come up. And we're back in the vehicle.
We're never out of here within an hour of.
We got the ranges right, we got does it need?
Yeah, oh, it's definitely next to.
They're very adamant, do not.
Right, but I just.
We're in the daylight.
Oh, was there a thing?
Yeah, it's also
Anytime
true on
before
a approximate
4.
value or a true value, and you'll want an exact match.
Oh, there you go. Okay, all right.
Hold on a sec, let me ask them, can you
Hear me? Can you hear me?
The oft-repeated words, history of pandemics.
Yeah, right. Good, okay.
Start all over from.
Okay, guys. Repeating myself, sorry about that, you guys online. So I just wanted to do a quick reminder that we do have board, GS Colorado board elections. We have 3 open positions. Nominate yourself. We blasted something out to Lister a couple days ago with all the details. Super easy. Love to have you serve on the board for a 3-year term. And nominations are currently open for the next, I think, 3.5 weeks. And then after that, we'll go into elections. And, new board members will start their term in basically in May. So
Nominations are open until mid-February. Voting starts February 27th.
there you go. Yep, super easy. But you have to be a paid member to vote for your board. So another reason to plug being a paid member.
And how do I pay my dues?
An easy
Come
25
to
bucks.
me, $25. I'll take
25
cash,
bucks.
check, or credit
It's a
card.
no-brainer.
Or go
Right.
to the website and you can do it yourself.
And now,
We also have t-shirts for sale if you're interested.
yeah, t-shirts.
Long sleeve and short sleeve.
All right, so we got a couple new faces. So I'm gonna go ahead and so we'll start in the back and yeah, just quick intro and then we'll let Steve take it away. I stole 2 minutes from you, sorry.
That's all right. I'll make it quick. Hey, everyone, I'm Jeff Vineyard. I am a GIS operations manager. It's technically my title with a company called Hydrography, which we consult with a lot of public utilities. So like do a lot of integrated data stuff, but we do have a decent GIS chunk, and I kind of write for it over maps and like client facing, group facing stuff like that. Recent-ish transplant to Colorado. We moved down here almost precisely 1 year ago. Actually, we live over in Gunnison. My wife's a veterinarian over there, so we just went over the hill this morning. Yeah, and thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Andrea Santoro, former GIS Colorado board member. Super excited to see everybody live in person. And I recently moved to Durango, Colorado, where I'm working for an environmental consulting company and helping them migrate from our Map to Pro, which is and otherwise, I think GIS.
Everything.
I guess, my name is Franco. I work, City of Salida Planning Department. So came up from downstairs to here. Used to do GIS, now I'm a planner. But still do GIS.
Still doing
Steve, take it away.
Steve who?
Well, for those that don't know me, and I assume everything's good. I don't have to go anywhere.
Recording?
Are we recording?
Yes, it is
Yes.
recording.
Okay.
So I'm Steve Hick with the University of Denver, and since that announcement went out about the elections and whatnot, I've been involved with this organization for now, I can say over 20 years, kind of there at the rebirth of this organization. And I was co-chair Grand Poobah for a few terms. And for those of you online, especially if you're new to the area, the profession, the community, get involved. It's a great way to meet people and generate a lot of new friends and what become lifelong friends in the process. So, you know, I've told everybody this, I'd be on the board all the time if I could, but it wouldn't be fair because then there wouldn't be a spot for somebody else to be on the board. So by all means, get involved. It's a great group. You'll have a good time. So, all right, well, the agenda looked a little thin in terms of numbers of speakers for the day. So I thought, oh, well, I'm coming down here anyway. I might as well put in a few minutes and say something. I haven't presented at a GIS Colorado board or a Colorado general meeting in probably over a decade. So it's kind of good to be back. It's not a bad thing. So, but what am I going to talk about? And, you know, I teach all the time. I do mostly administration anymore. It's just all I do is sign my name all day long. But this last spring, I got the opportunity to do some real work finally. I hadn't done any real honest to goodness work in a long time. So I want to talk about UAS data collection, and good Lord willing here, this will work. I'm not going to read all this to you, but yeah, I've been at the University of Denver. Next Tuesday will be oh, I didn't get the shirt, but
It came on.
okay. I will talk slower. Next Tuesday, I'll celebrate 28 years at the University of Denver. I never really planned to be there that long, but one of the things we started shortly after I got there was a campus mapping project. And in those days, we had a funded position to do all of that. And that has evolved over time. But, you know, the University of Denver is not a huge campus, but it's a small city in its own right, because we have all the infrastructure that any other community would have with pipes and wires and buildings and people and just all the stuff that goes with that. So historically, well, if you know anything about the University of Denver, in the 20 years I've been there, 27 of those years, we've had a crane in the ground. We have built more buildings, and it continues to, it has never stopped in 27 years, the last 27 years. So there's always something new to map, more infrastructure and all of that, both above and below ground. And we get aerial photography every other year from Denver Regional Council of Governments, and that comes at a price. It's not a horrible price by any means, but that's what we've been doing. But things change so fast that waiting every other year for photography just doesn't do us any good. So the facilities department, they're friends of mine, and they know I fly drones, and they asked about flying a drone and doing just getting campus, doing a kind of a campus project. So that's sort of the 2.0 part is just introducing UAS. So we've been doing it for a while. I'll tell you what we've been doing, where we're at and where we're going to go with all of this. If you know anything about drones, and how many drone pilots do we have in the room? Look at that, 3 already. And online.
Legal or illegal ones?
What?
Well, is that legal pilots or illegal?
Oh, well, you know, and that's, this is a dynamic industry and it's changing on the fly. And I shouldn't admit this, but I've been an illegal pilot, not an illegal pilot, that's not true. I've been a pilot for a long time, but now I'm legal. The difference is now you got to pay me to do this stuff. In the past, it was just in the interest of either recreation or research. So, but this all kind of started in the model aircraft industry. So, you know, a lot of kids grew up flying model planes. I did not, but then the drones got cheaper. The apps that we have on our phones, I mean, you know, for $9.95, you can do photogrammetry. You know, that's something that you used to spend a semester learning when I was in college. So, you know, it's come a long way. And then, you know, again, the drones are just cheap and easy to use. Anybody can do it. So, you know, who's using them? Why are we using them? I could go for days on this topic alone, but, you know, public safety is all that kind of, you know, search and rescue. In fact, you know, this is a great county to get lost in because their search and rescue teams and their use of drones to find people and to, you know, drop a radio to you if you're in a difficult location or drop water to you. These guys, they're all over it. They're really good here. Anyway, construction, I've got friends in the construction business, 60 pilots flying every project that they do every day to monitor the progress on what they're doing. Home inspections, real estate, that's what, you know, I always questioned just how widespread was this going to be, and then started house hunting for a retirement home and found every house you look at anymore has got drone imagery associated with it. So, you know, GIS and mapping, y'all know that one. Television news, you know, I don't watch much regular local TV news, but pay attention to how much drone footage is being submitted now when you watch TV news. Power line inspection, oil and gas, wind turbines, all that. My son is now a drone pilot. Some of you heard this last night, but hopefully soon he'll be shadowing and at least trying to apply for a job with a inspection, doing power line inspection. So there's just tons of opportunities out there. It's just growing every day. So I've been doing this since 2014. So I guess in the big scheme of things, maybe a long time, depends on your frame of reference. I started flying a fixed wing airplane, which is a hell of a lot harder than flying a quadcopter, I'll tell you, because you actually have to fly. You just can't let go of the sticks and let it hover. My first project I did, and I had a grad student doing the project, but I was really the student in all of this. We were learning together. But we flew a vineyard out in Palisade, the Carlson winery, and you know, it was a research project. We didn't get paid, although we did come home with a couple of bottles of wine. But we were using infrared photography and looking at the health of vines. And we didn't do the entire vineyard. We were just doing a test plot, but got some good results out of that. So that was my first opportunity to kind of go fly for real. So yeah, it looked something like that. Just a few small, an acre, maybe acre and a half. I don't know, whatever it was. I've supported other grad students since then doing their projects. So we have a pretty strong geomorphology focus in our department. So Maddie's down in Arizona State now working on her PhD, but she did some up in the St. Vrain River in the canyon doing some erosion work. So I did some flying for her. And then Doug Winters, another graduate of our program, was doing some work for Fairmount Fire Protection District. And that was an interesting one in terms of some of the results that helped guide me as a pilot in all of this. And then a lot of other little projects I've done. I'm not going to dwell on all of these, but I don't know, any of them particularly fun. I did the Mount Princeton Hot Springs over here one summer. Yeah, and again, I don't get paid for this, but you know, a night in the hot springs is always a good return for going out and doing some flying for them.
What's the picture there?
So this is the field station. All right, sidebar. One of my other responsibilities at the university is I manage the University High Altitude Lab and Field Station at Echo Lake on Mount Evans. So it's my cabin in the woods that I go to. You're all invited to come up and see the place or spend the weekend in my cabin, the caretaker's cabin. So I do some flying up there. I promised myself I wasn't going to get into a bunch of side stories here, but dumbest thing,
one of the dumbest things I've ever done flying up there was waiting 20 minutes too long. You know, in the afternoon, gets windy in the mountains, and when you're down in the trees, it's nice and calm. And I'm showing students, you know, what to do and how to do it. And I launch, and I'm flying a mission, collecting this kind of data. This was probably the day before these pictures were taken. And suddenly the drone starts acting wonky, and then it just takes off, and it's heading east. And I'm running down the hill with my controller. In my mind, I see this thing crashing, the batteries bursting into flames, massive forest fire starts, and I'm responsible. Fortunately, you know, I was a dumbass for flying in those conditions, but the good news was I was a pretty good pilot, and I got the thing down to the treetops, and I flew it back home and saved the day. But you got to pay attention to those winds aloft.
Probably would have come home the next morning.
Yeah. The last one on this list, the Diamond Family Residential Village, that's, I was just telling Andrea over break, that's our new freshman dorm. And we thought it'd be a neat idea to fly it when it was under construction, when it was just a foundation. And that's when the facilities department, the project managers looked at, oh yeah, this is cool, we could do this. So we started flying some of the new construction when it was just foundational. So, and then, you know, now it's all done. It was all finished a year ago. So I told you about our campus mapping history. I just decided, all right, let's take this on as a project. I need something, it's not like I don't have enough to do, but I wanted to try something bigger. Because every project that in that list is just a couple acres, you know, not very big. But to do the entire campus, that's like doing a small city. And again, a very small city, but you know, we're over 120 acres, and it's very urban, and it comes with all the risks associated with flying in urban environments. So I was the PIC, the pilot in command, and Bill, some of you might know Bill. Bill's been, he's an IT guy, but he also does the campus mapping sort of on the side. So he's been the campus mapping GIS guy for over 25 years. He went out as my spotter. His responsibility is to make sure that nobody was entering our area, and, you know, just keep a lookout while I was flying the drone. And then I made it his job to notify campus safety every time we were going to fly, like when we're going to be on site, when we're leaving, that kind of thing. So those were his jobs. So we did it this last spring, started in April, finished in May. Wanted to know just how hard was this going to be. Like I said, I'd never done anything this big before. I was talking to Franco last night. He's done projects way bigger than this, but for me, this was a big deal. You know, could we put together a giant mosaic? Because again, I didn't know how many images this was going to be, because normally a few acre job, you're throwing together dozens of, maybe a couple hundred images. This was going to be a couple thousand images. And then really at the end of the day, is this something we could rely on? Could we be on call to go out there and fly imagery over campus for whatever purpose on a regular basis? So that's kind of what I was looking for going into it. In preparation, again, it's just a crude map, but I naively went into this thing. I'll just park my truck on the top of a parking garage, and I'll have great visibility, and I'll be able to fly massive acreage and just do it in a few flights. Well, I was wrong. So just the first time I thought, our parking garages are not huge. They're just a few stories, maybe 4 or 5 stories. But every time I got on top of a parking garage, I had complete interference, radio interference, bad GPS signal, nothing was working. Not good enough to launch. In talking to my friends in the construction industry after the fact, I didn't realize how much rebar they put into these structures. And apparently that rebar is enough metal, and it does enough with whatever is radio signals and reflection, that I could not launch off of the big parking garages. So I had to abandon that approach right from the get-go. Again, just more how to. When you do a flight, you go out there with checklists. You know, anybody can fly a drone, but not everybody flies a drone safely. And I'm a bit retentive in terms of when you go out there, you just, you know, you can do your inspections, go through your checklist every time. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but you got to do it right. You got to do it by the book. I have a 3-ring binder with page after page after page of checklists that I go through, planning on site, checking the craft, after the fact, processing the data, just a series of checklists that we go through. So those are samples of some of that. I don't know, yeah, Dave's still online. Dave Siddle sold me this DJI Inspire a number of years ago, and the thing's been bulletproof, Dave. It's still flying. There's nothing wrong with it, although it's probably time to upgrade. But I do all the real, we have a, I would like to say our hangar full of, I have several drones, but this is the one that's been the most steady for flying and capturing data. It's old now, but anyway, what I thought was just going to be a few easy flights off the parking garage just turned into over 20 different flights. I think there's 19 different launch points that I ended up using across the campus. And you wonder about the spacing and whatnot, but sort of towards the north end of campus, it's a little more spread out because we're over the athletic fields and you have better line of sight. And then down around the south end of campus where my home is, it's taller buildings and more mature trees and just things in the way. So I was always, you know, you think you work at a place for a long time, you think you know the place until you get on the ground and you look up and like, nah, this is no good. You know, what am I going to do? So did a lot of moving around with all of that. So I don't know what software wise, it's very easy to do. We use different softwares to do different things, I guess, but what was I using? It was Maps Made Easy back in the day. It's changed its name, but you know, find a launch point, go in there, program the area that I want to fly, set up the perimeter. The software calculates the flight lines. I left all the screens open on the left, but you know, you figure out just how many acres was this one going to be. Anyway. Resolution speed, and really the most important thing at the end of the day is resolution. How good do you want the imagery to be? And with the Dr. Cog imagery, I think the best we ever got was 3-inch resolution. With the drone, I just set it so we were always capturing about 1-inch resolution. So dramatically better. I mean, you know, you can see everything on the ground at 1-inch resolution.
Are you the purple dot?
Yes. Okay. So in this case, I got to set up in the middle of the area. It's just flying a parking lot. So we have this island off the northeast corner of campus that's parking, and this, well, it doesn't do you guys anything good online. This blank construction there is a new building that has now been completed. So I flew that separately. And here in this particular, where's my cursor? There it is. In this case, we got a power substation over here. And it's a construction site over there. So anyway, parking lot, flying over a dome. This is this launch site over here. I'm you know, parking garage, but it's a one ground level and then just one deck. So for whatever reason, that parking garage did not pose any kind of problem for flying. But flying over the dorm, and going back to one of my students' research, Doug Winter, doing pre-flight planning, trying to figure out, you know, how far out can the drone be? And we can put blinkers, what's the word I'm looking for?
Panel points?
Beacons, flashing beacons on our drones. I don't have those, but Doug figured out that optimizing, so in terms of visual line of sight, 1,500 feet, yeah, it kind of depends on the size of your drone and the contrast in the sky and whatnot. But at 1,500 feet, a drone gets really small. And when you're as old as I am, at 1,000 feet, that drone gets really small. So I started working with a sort of 1,000-foot limitation when I was, you know, how far would I let it get away from me where I could still see it and know what it was doing when it was 1,000 feet away, which with 1,000 feet, the campus, the number of flights went up because I was flying smaller chunks. So at the end of the day, I think the smallest chunk I flew was 6 acres and the biggest was 13 acres. So even, you know, if every flight had been 10 acres, it would have been a dozen flights, but it was almost 20 flights. It was more than 20 flights but I had a couple aborted attempts. This is just my end of campus. Again, just trying, it's one thing to be in the middle and have the drone do its mission over the top of you and all around you. It's another when you're sort of looking out over space and the drone gets farther and farther away. So yeah, what did I do? One inch resolution was the goal. And I know I didn't say this at the beginning, but the goal was to do the leaf off photography. We do a lot of pretty aerial photography of campus during the summertime with all the trees in bloom, and copies of those photos hang all over the place. We wanted leaf off so we could see the ground, so we could use the data for other facilities like projects. Anyway, 1 inch resolution, just over 2,200 photos, 30 miles of flight, 120 acres, I've said several times. Did all the processing in Pix4D, which I don't know how familiar you are all with that software, and then put the GIS stuff in the mapping in ArcGIS Pro. So did we get leaf off imagery? Yeah. Again, we started in April and finished in May. I didn't realize, again, you think you know everything, right? And it's you really got to pay attention to the species and at what rate they're leafing out at. So we were sort of also chasing different species of trees, so we would get the ones that are going to leaf out first before. Next time I do this, if there's a next time, I will consult with the arborist. We do have a campus arborist, and be more precise about which trees are coming, which ones are going to leaf. I'll talk more about some of the other challenges. Some of them are fun, not so much. Some are not so much fun. Can we use it for campus mapping? Yes. The problem is ground control. Franco, we were talking about this last night. Just going out there and laying out ground control ahead of time. And yeah, I would like to pitch this notion of having permanent ground control out there. If we're going to do this all the time, we should just have it in place. So I don't have to mess with it. We can see it. We know what the coordinates are. We can do all of that for the orthorectification after the fact. So I think we can do this going forward. But now this results in ArcGIS Online. You're all welcome to take a look at that. I think I shared it with the world. Pro, none of that really matters. So the challenges, working in the small increments I've told you about, again, line of sight. Seems like every other project I've ever done, there were no buildings in the way. Well, when you start getting buildings, and even none of our buildings are huge, but several of them have towers and spires. And when the drone passes behind the spire, even if it's just a cone top spire, you lose signal. Now, is it a long time? No. Is it but it's not right. You're not supposed to lose your signal with your aircraft, and it happened. So that changes some things. So doing those smaller is just really time consuming. This was done over 6 weeks because I don't have all the time in the world to do this. And told you about the garages. Winds and the winds passing between buildings is a huge problem. Fortunately, we have enough flags flying outside the buildings that usually that's my gauge. When a flag is out doing this, the wind's going 25 miles an hour. Well, that's too much. So I don't fly when the flag is upright. And then I had to do all this on weekends. Why? Because we don't fly over people. So when are there no people on campus? Sunday morning. So that all this was done, almost all of it was done on Sunday morning, except for the one part of campus that's always busy on the weekends.
Coffee shop or the bar or something like that?
The athletic complex, with all the camps and all the practices, all the kids lacrosse and soccer and everything going on. So the athletic complexes I did on a Wednesday morning. That was the quiet day for that. And then I'll tell you one more stupid story, something I'll never do. My spotter suggested, oh, there's this deck with this beautiful view on top of the physics building. All right, and it's a deck about the size of this room in terms of square footage. It's narrower, a little bit longer. Flew off of there and was flying a fairly normal mission to start, but then it was getting wonky. And I should tell you about the engineering building. But I said, all right, I have to abort, and I'm bringing, when you abort, you can send it, hit the home button, but when it's windy, it's, you don't know what you're gonna get. So I'm flying it back in, and it gets between the buildings and the wind, like, to explain this, took off here, again, with the accuracy is not spot on, but we've got a wall. This part of the building is taller than where I'm standing, so I don't feel the wind. But what do winds do between the buildings? Well, they're gusting through there. And all of this chaos is me trying to land this thing without taking my head off or the spotter's head off, as we're trying to land on this deck with the winds blowing around. So this whole notion of flying off buildings was a really bad idea from the get-go. And I should, where we had time, yeah, I got to finish up here, but the engineering building, of the 3 just flat out aborted missions where things went wonky, the engineering building were 2 of them. And turns out they have a lot of high energy equipment in those buildings, and they're putting out a lot of radio frequency. Nobody could really tell me what they've got going on, but twice trying to fly at 200 feet, about 180 to 200 feet over their building, it wigged out. One was bad, but it all ended well. So to get the engineering school for their building, I went up to 300 feet. So the resolution over their buildings, 1.5 inches instead of 1 inch resolution. But at 300 feet, I was clearing whatever interference they were putting out. But that's just another one of those things you got to watch out for. What's the tallest point at the University of Denver campus? University of Denver alum?
Or the Ritchie Center?
The Williams Tower at the Ritchie Center, that spire. I was flying at 187 feet. What's the top of that spire? 192. So I added another 20 feet to make sure not that the odds of running into it were pretty low, but I added 20 feet to the flight just to make darn sure. So yeah, what am I gonna do? We're gonna improve the georeferencing on campus. I'd like to have permanent ground control. I'd like to have the ability to mobilize, which means don't rely on me to do it because I got a busy calendar, but it would be nice to have more people up and ready to do this kind of thing. And then share the experience with our students. So I'm proposing a new course. We already teach UAS courses in our GIS certificate program, but I'd like to introduce this to the undergraduate population. So I'm proposing in spring of 23, it has to be a springtime class because of weather and length of daylight hours and that kind of thing. Hopefully I'll be teaching this in the spring of 23 and teach students all about this and maybe make them ready for their Part 107 exam, which is your pilot certification to fly drones. So a boring flight is a good flight. That's what we always say. There's a couple things that when you work with, you talk to other pilots, things that you keep in your head. Somebody probably heard me say last night, 8 hours bottle to throttle. You don't fly with, until you've been off the bottle for 8 hours or whatever. I just learned that from a pilot a few weeks ago. Again, small projects have paved the way for the bigger projects. Again, this was my opportunity to do a much bigger project that required many missions, and now I'll take it to the students and teach them how to do it. So that, my friends, is what I have to say about Campus Mapping 2.0. Yeah.
Quick question, Steve. How about the time of day? I mean, that had to be a huge restriction also. I mean, ideally you want the sun at
typical
the sky.
Yeah, typical photogrammetry requirements in terms of times. They try to do it between 10 and 2. All of this was done between 9 and noon. Because people start coming out. It's not like they were. It's not like we didn't ever fly over people, but very small crowds. So the time of day had more to do with safety than it did with shadows. But 10 to noon.
What was your flight ceiling? And then also how high did you have to fly in order to get that 1 inch resolution?
I was flying, the ceiling is 400 feet. And I was flying at between 187, I think that was the lowest, 200 feet. About 200 feet is what I tell people. Except for over the engineering school.
So it looks like you went from gunning for 6 flights to about 2 dozen. How did that sort of scale the amount of data you all had to process in terms of like your file size and time, that sort of thing? Was it gnarly, was it tame?
It's one of my colleagues asked me the same question. Thousands of images, well, like it's like 2,200 images, and when I mosaic them and made a TIFF, I ended up with a 30 gig TIFF file, which I'm not thrilled with.
Yeah.
Putting this up in ArcGIS Online, I had to create tiles to serve it all up. It's not bad, but that's like the next thing I've got to work on is a better way to serve this up, to share. And
You're flying over people, it's a safety issue, not a privacy issue, right?
it's safety and legal. You don't fly over people, and you can get, there are, if you notify people that you're flying over them, and if you just now, like with sporting events and that kind of thing, just pass over them, it's okay. And but you have, it's, drone regulations are changing, so you have to have prop guards on your drone, and then by, when is it, September of 23?
RFID.
Yeah, every drone has to have RFID, so it's trackable by the FAA. So they know whose it is and who's flying. You register your drone with the FAA. In the future, all drones over a half pound have to be registered, half pound have to be registered with the FAA. So yeah, it's just all about safety.
Yeah.
From online, we have the question, what airspace is the campus in?
Oh, who asked me that?
Jackson's Rapid.
Yeah. We are in I have to look at the chart. I don't know, because I didn't look at the chart before I flew. I was more concerned.
Oh, yeah.
G, it might be G. We're close enough to Centennial. I don't know. Centennial is Class C. I'm not sure. We're not in it. We're far, far from it, but that's the closest airport. Yeah, I've got that app on my phone. I can pull that up and tell you exactly what we're in. Anything else?
Did you do any of the analysis after having all that mosaic?
No. You mean like doing anything?
Yeah, with it.
Image processing wise?
Yeah, like sort of hand over through remote sensing class.
Well, that will come next.
Okay.
So it's, yes, I'll use it in my classes, certainly. That's sort of a work in progress.
Are you gonna try to build a topo map with it?
Could, not planned, but could, the data would support that.
Because of a 1 inch, I mean,
Yeah.
you have a lot of detail.
Yeah, especially in the big open areas, the quad areas, which we have 3 major quad areas, that would be good. I would also like to get into the building 3D models of the buildings. We did as a test, this was a project before that, in the tennis center. It's just a grass below and 6 tennis courts on top, and we did the flying around and do that. But I would love to do every single building. That'd be so cool, and then be able to do a fly through campus kind of thing instead of a schematic.
Did you do anything fun before flying it, like your dead body outline on the building? Or
Boy, you remember everything I say, don't you?
well, Jackson and them, before pictometry flew in Junction, they put a big, I think it was Steve Smith, put a big smiley face in the backyard and rocks and painted it.
For those who don't know the context, probably the last time I sat here and did a presentation, it was about crime mapping and analysis. And I spent 20 years working with law enforcement, and I teased when Dr. Cog was getting ready to fly the next Denver aerial photo missions, I was gonna put a big giant dead body outline on the roof of our building, which has nice black top with good contrast. But I never did it.
So you didn't do anything fun
No,
before this one?
Very focused, not much time. That was all nerves, flying over campus, again, most of the places I've flown were pretty safe. I've done buildings in urban areas, but again, a building that had large parking around it or whatever. For me, flying over a campus was a nerve-wracking experience, just because there are all these buildings and people, anything could happen. And if it went wonky, and I've never had anything except for that experience on the mountain years ago with the wind. I'm surrounded by interstate highway on the north.
Yeah.
That's the absolute worst case scenario, is dropping out of the sky on the highway, or dropping on somebody's house or somebody's backyard in the neighborhood. And we were talking about being neighborhood presidents of our respective neighborhoods. I got one of those calls one day about somebody parked a drone in somebody else's tree, and what could I do about it? Like, I don't know. Call the police. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. I could be here all day with stories. Anything else online, anybody?
Nothing else.
All right, thank you much.
Uh-oh.
All right, thank you.
We had a message.
I just turned off the sharing.
Oh, I see. Okay, so up next we have Scott Larson. Did you have a presentation?
Yeah, I just had a.
Okay. All right.
It goes to the voice. Or I should say voice. Yeah. That's overall, and I think you're just as long as it's going.
Also, second teachers, the two-step verification, we're pulling our phone out before.
I have forgotten board passwords that most people have.
That's not interesting.
Oh, the audio made it bad. You get that settled up.
All right, well, most of this is a demo, so I think we'll be fine doing this anyways. All right. Am I good to start as far as time? Yeah, am I good to start as far as time? All right. So this is, we'll just do it this way. If you can't hear or see anything online, let me know and I'll stop. But the city of Grand Junction, we built and have launched our own report of concern application, basically for the public, which is if the public has, wants to report a pothole or a sewer issue or anything, any city service, they can go to this application and just click on the map and report it versus trying to call someone up and going through a phone tree and find the right person and that sort of thing, right? Background, we had a fix-it page on our website before, which was basically a bunch of text boxes where it says, put in your name, your phone number, your email, what's the issue, just a text box for address. There's no address verification or anything like that. And so we're looking for something that we could do a little bit of automation because it all, the old version all went to a single person. And then they would dish that out to departments for them to go and fix it. And then the department would either come back to them and say, all right, we're done, you can let the person know, or the person would have to go and track someone down to figure out if the issue is taken care of or not. So I'll do a little bit of background on the demo, and then kind of a little bit of our process of how the different parts work together. We've got some automation in there. My background's in programming, so the less human errors you can take care of, the better. Some lesson learned that we learned through doing this. Some of the things that this doesn't cover that we've gotten feedback from the departments that they'd like to do, but this specific application doesn't. And then some things that we're working on as well. So this report of concern application is actually an Esri solution. So you can just go online and hit apply solution and it'll download it on ArcGIS Online, or I believe it's on Portal as well. Sorry for the small text on there. But we didn't have any address verification on the old system. There were no, geofencing, so we got a bunch of stuff for Mesa County or for, XL for all the street lamps. They couldn't attach any pictures to it, which was an issue. And then just the following up and trying to track down all those tickets was difficult. So we went through a couple of different options, looked at a couple of different companies, and did demos with 3 of them. And the price range, price was a factor, but really they didn't have exactly what we wanted for our application. And prices range from $12,000 to a year to the highest one was like $75,000 for initial setup, and then like $20,000 every year afterwards. And this one is you just have to pay for licenses, right? Is there any way I can get rid of this top part?
No, well, you can move it onto the laptop screen at least. You can at least like drag it over to the laptop screen.
I could be good at this. So this is what the public sees. So this is our report of concern application. And I'll go over it real quick. And just as far as time check, when's my end time? Is it 40 after? All right, well, someone yell at me when I'm close to time. Does that work? All right, cool. All right, so this is all mobile friendly as well. So if you pop it up on a phone, it will work, same capability, same everything as if you were on desktop. You'll just see the sidebar versus this map and sidebar, but you can switch through it on that. I'm not gonna go through overall tools like I normally would when I'm training somebody, because we're GIS people, you know how all that stuff works. But up here in the top right, we've got a little help deal. In the past, police has been concerned that people are going to put active crimes, and we don't want that because this is not for that specific application. It's not for immediate, the immediate use case. So we've got a help desk phone number. We've also got a short YouTube video for people how you can submit a concern on here as well. So this is just a normal map. This green area is our defense boundary. So each of these different ones can have a different boundary. So for example, our water boundary is a lot different than the city limits boundary. And we don't want, we want all of our water issues only in our water boundary, not for all of city limits. So we've customized it that you can only put an issue within that boundary. Each of these categories, if they don't know exactly what they want, these are basically the categories that are within here, each of the different types. These symbols right here, you can see these ones are green right now. They're all color coded based on their status, and I'll jump into that a little bit later. But if it's red, it's just been submitted. If it's green, it's completed, and we've got a couple different categories in between. And that's useful because, jump over the road and it might show a couple more. Sometimes some tickets might take longer than others, and so the public can jump in here. You can see someone here haven't been completed yet. And let's say this is my ticket, and I want to see, what the city's done on it, right? And so I can see where the progress is in here, when it was resolved, our comment that we've sent to them, and kind of if they've submitted multiple, they can see the different details as well. So if we jump in here, we want to submit, let's say, a pothole. I guess before I jump in there, so all of these are on here in an effort that will put on duplicate tickets, right? So if everybody calls in about the same pothole, hopefully they'll come in and they'll see that there's already submitted a pothole ticket, and you won't get 12 requests for pothole. If they're really adamant about voicing that they want to help out with the pothole, they can add a comment as well, and it will show up here on comments. Once they submit a ticket, they get an automated email, and we get an automated email, so that then they know that they've actually sent something in, and then there's some links on there that they can go in and check in on the status of their ticket. So if we jump in to submit a new ticket, we've got a couple different fields on here. Some are required. That was one of the feedback that we got, is they wanted required fields, especially because we do a lot of tracking through email, that they get automated emails. And so we wanted an email and phone number and name for that, because if they needed to follow up with the person, it wasn't in the right location, something like that, they'd have access to it right there. So if I wanted, for example, to submit a pothole, I go in, type submit pothole. I can say, yeah, there you go. All right.
What a find.
Yeah, so I actually went out yesterday and found a pothole, so we can submit this one. And I'll put in my phone number. Okay, and then down here, a couple of things that the other version fell short on was address verification. So there's a couple different ways you can put in an address. So right here, you can just type in the address and it will autocomplete the address for you.
Now, are they reporting the address of the location of the issue? Or?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I don't care where they're at. I just want where the issue is. Right. So, or I can, you know, if my pothole's right there, I can click and then I'll fill an address right in there. If I was standing over the pothole, I can click right here and it will use my GPS location and stick it in on there and use that address. So most people that use this, we're thinking you'd be on a mobile device, right? Because you're out, you see a pothole, you see a tree branch down, whatever. You just hit browse. And a computer, this pops up and you put your image in. On a phone, it pops up a little menu and it says, do you want to take a picture or use one from your photo library? So that's pretty slick, just because we can see, you know, is it a pothole that someone's complaining about that's, you know, a tennis ball, or is it, you know, a huge, massive one that people are following it? So you hit report it. It tells you your request has been submitted. And as far as the public side, that's kind of the end of it. They get, thank you, this request has been submitted, and then it comes over to our side.
Is there any way that you're error checking that email?
No, that's one of the things that we'd like. So that email field is just a text field in ArcGIS Online. There's no verification. You could, I mean, don't go do this, but you can type in whatever you want in there and it'll take it, right? So it has to have something in it. It just doesn't check if it's an email. Same thing with the phone number. It won't check if it's a phone number. So on the left side, you can see here's kind of the public side. There on the reporter concern app, they submit their concern. It pops over us to internal, which is the right side. And it goes into the manager, which I'll show in a minute. And that is the portion where you can go in and change the different fields, say this has been completed, or get any of the information that you need. Then there's a dashboard. So we used to have a report that would get sent out bi-weekly, and which had all of the issues that people had sent in on the old fix-it form. And unless you were looking for a specific ticket, 99% of the time it just went straight to your trash, right? Because it's a PDF, it's just text, there's no images, it's just a pain point that people have. So we made a dashboard basically to replace that. Once the ticket's been completed, the individual that sent the ticket through their email, we send them an automated email that says, hey, we've completed your ticket. Here's some info that you sent about the ticket. And then it also gives them a link for a survey that they can fill out that says, you know, are you happy? How happy? You know, do you have any additional comments that you want to give to us? And I'll jump back into the demo in a second. I apologize for the font size, but on the left is the email that they get sent that basically says, here's the info that you sent. They've got a couple of links that they can submit another concern. Right here, you can't see it, but there's a link that they can click and it'll take it right to their ticket. So they don't have to go in the thing and find the spot where they pressed it and go to it. But they can go click right to it and find it in the map. On the right side, this is all the details that they sent to whoever manages that main category. And it's got contact info. If they click this button, it also goes to that same page. The idea behind that is for the field crews. You could just forward them this email and they could get that exact location. And then we wouldn't have to buy a license for them. On here, on the manager and the dashboard, we've got those locked down, and so you can't, you'd have to log in order to get to it. Right here on the left is just an example. This is what gets sent to them when they complete when we complete the ticket. There's a satisfaction survey, and then there's a survey 1, 2, 3, one that they can fill out the survey. And that gets linked back to their original tickets, so you can cross-reference tickets and how happy they were. So if everybody's mad about potholes or if everybody's mad about street lights, you can kind of see that. So let's hop into the manager. So each of the categories that we saw at the beginning, sewer, water, roads, each of those categories has a person assigned to it. So instead of all of the tickets going to a single person, it automatically, if it's a pothole, it gets sent to a specific person. They deal with the potholes, and they can come in here and look at any of the details that they need. So right now so we can go in here, wrong one, assign to. The screen is different size than the one on my computer. So we go in here, we wanted to go to, streets. Right there's the one that we submitted, right? And then, so this is basically equivalent of an Excel. You can go down here, it has all the info. But right here, it has a little pop-up that shows all the details that we submitted. And we can go in here and edit these different ones, right? So if we receive the ticket, we can put that, and that moves the status bar on the public's end as well. This field, you can type in, this is what we did to resolve the issue. That gets included in the email back to them in the completion ticket, so that they have a feeling of, hey, the city actually did something, and they get something back. We have a resolved on date, and this automatically tracks different metrics of how long it takes to fix a specific ticket. So if you see, all your potholes take, a week or a day or however long, you can kind of track those metrics as well. If so, for whatever reason, if somebody puts something bad in here or they're cussing up a storm, you can hide this on the public map. And so if you hit no, it will still show up on all the internal maps, but on the external map to the public, they're not going to see it. Or if they submit, a bad picture or whatever, you can hide those as well. So you have a little bit of management on that end. So this also hides, since you don't want 1 million tickets, this hides all the completed tickets automatically. So if you wanted to go in and show all of them, you can just click an X and it'll show all of them as well. And Esri's got a pretty good tutorial that they go through different things that you can manage this to see how you want to customize it to your specific pieces. Here is a dashboard, 2 dashboards that we use to manage all of this. Mostly this on the director's level, kind of a high level overview of what's going on. So you can see how many tickets are currently open and how many have been opened in the last week. It's kind of a heads up display. If you jump in here, this is a more metric heavy one. You can click on any of these and it'll zoom to that specific ticket and it will load this pop-up. Right here, you can see on this left side, these are all selectable. So if you want to only see specific tickets, or you're only concerned about, your department, you can see which ones are submitted most, on a time frame when they've been submitted, and just an overall count as well. So this is the survey. So you can see either people are really happy or people are really mad, not a whole lot in the middle. But you can look at all these specific tickets, which shows just the results of the survey of, comments, how happy were they with the time frame that it was completed in, how happy were they with the overall completion. One of the questions is, would you recommend it to a friend kind of deal? And that's what this is symbolized off of. And then, so this is the dashboard that comes kind of with the solution. And then we built another one, which is more report based. And this is the one that we use to replace that report. So if someone's just looking for a specific ticket, you can look for that ticket. But you've got similar metrics on here. You got, if you want to look at it within a specific time frame, if you want to look at it with only, only show me completed tickets, or say you have a problem ticket and you want to look it up by a specific number, you can just type in that number code that it gives you, and then it will only pull up that ticket, which is useful when you're looking for specific ones. So we made this one a little bit with some little bells and whistles. It'll show a little tracker over on this side of how many days it's been completed, what the status is. If the ticket is completed, it hides the status bar just to save on space. It gives you how many days it's been completed, and it gives you a checkbox over here. This right here is just the pop-up. So in any of these, you can go through and look at the same pop-up as you would if you were in that manager app as well.
Scott?
Yeah.
Online question?
Yeah.
What do you do with survey results?
So some departments didn't want to send out a survey at all, and some wanted the survey. What comes standard in this is that there's a button that you can click, and that will send the survey. But we just stuck it in the email instead, so it goes out to everybody. As far as survey results, it's kind of on a department by department basis. If they use them, what they do with them, that sort of thing. That's kind of put the ball in their court, and they can do what they want with it.
You all do anything to communicate like SLAs, manage expectations of the public as they're sending these in?
No, but we haven't really had an issue with it as
awesome.
Yeah. So if it pops up, maybe we might have to, but
How long has this been up?
we launched it in beginning of October.
And how many hours of developer time to build all this?
A decent amount. Yeah. So it comes as a solution that you can click the button, launch it, boom, it's live, and you can just roll with it like that. We've customized it a lot, based on our theme. And jump back into this guy. All of the geofencing doesn't come standard. We've added specific categories on here. Within the categories, like we made required fields, all of the email stuff we've done ourselves, and then all of the specific type categories. It comes preloaded, but we've narrowed it down just because if you're on a mobile device and you're scrolling through like 20 different categories, you're going to give up and just say other, right? So we've tried to keep it a max of 5 of those internal category types, just because those show up well on a mobile device.
Were you using something like GeoEvent Server for geofencing, or were you like doing a third-party thing?
No, so this actually has it kind of built in that you stick a layer in the web map, and then it has to be like a non-editable layer, and it just uses that as a geofence. So it's fairly easy to set that up. So yeah, none of this besides like we did a little bit of Python for the auto email stuff, and then just HTML for formatting stuff. But besides that, it's no good. So.
I have a question on the addressing. So when you put that point, that example point in,
Yeah.
is it the right of way? So is it pulling from your?
Yeah,
city
so it's our
address
geolocator
parcels or- okay.
that we added in there.
And then the street one or? like-
Yeah, so we have a address on the street one that it pulls off of.
Okay, so it's pulled from here. And then when people go back out in the field, do they use the address or do they use like actual point on
So I like, when the field crew, it kind of depends. If you're going up to a house, it's pretty easy just to punch in the address and go. But say if somebody sticks an address right here in the middle of the park, like it doesn't have an address, right? It's just the main whole park address. And so they can see specifically where on the path that is. So, yeah.
And we have another one, is this hosted on AGOL or internally?
Yeah, so this one is ArcGIS Online. I believe a similar, same thing solution that you can host on Portal as well.
Do you have any interface with Union Pacific as far as if somebody reports something on their property, you forward that to?
So basically we would, same as something like if we have that issue with like a bunch of the streetlights are run by Excel. And so if we get a street light, we just forward it onto the Excel or Union Pacific or whoever else that manages that. So it's cut down a lot of them, but yeah, there are these ones that sneak through with streetlights. And that's something that we're working on more with training. Originally, we're thinking maybe just do a buffer around all the streetlights, but it's kind of an issue because I mean, it's the same thing as the road category. And so it's hard to get only the ones that you want sometimes.
Do you get many people complaining about their neighbors?
Yes. Sometimes when I want to laugh, I jump in here and look at all the tickets and see what people have submitted. Like there was one the other day that came through that it was someone that took a picture of their neighbor was burning stuff in a burn barrel that they should have been doing. It's like a picture over a fence of their neighbor burning something in the burn barrel. It's just kind of funny. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that comes through on here that it's kind of, yeah, depends on what you get a barrel of everything. So, but yeah, stuff that we're working on internally as far as future development is we're trying to get a solution with Microsoft Power Automate, which is similar to Integramat, if any of you guys have used that, which basically you'll send in an instant email versus right now we just have it as a set scheduled task on our server that runs once an hour and shoots out the email. So but yeah, it's all of the internal departments, they've really liked it because they can set up a person and it manages it for them basically, and they don't have to look at it every day because they get the email whenever somebody submits a ticket. So
Wait, cool.
but that's the end. So if anybody's got any more questions, otherwise, yeah.
Don't see anything else from the online.
Is this that thing that used to come up as Naperville?
That's what?
When you first launched it, it came up with Naperville, Illinois, with your background, kind of an old school thing.
No, but anyway, it could have been in the past though, I'm not sure.
So much.
Yeah.
So 11:45 is lunchtime. So 5 minutes.
For lunch, just 5 minutes.
5 minutes before lunch or 5 minutes early. Any other announcements, questions for the good of the group? Otherwise, we can just break early.
What time do we want to start back?
Who's not quite ready yet, I don't think. No.
We'll start back up at 1.
Yep, start back up at 1, and I will put the agenda on the screen.
Right on.
Oh, okay.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello? Hi there, can you hear me?
Okay, hi. Yes, we
Oh,
can
great.
hear
Oh, awesome, thank you.
you. We were muted over here and I'm gonna mute myself again. So take it away.
Oh, great, okay. Just introduce myself. Hello, everyone. I'm Cheryl Lydic, and I work for the USGS National Geospatial Program as the National Map Liaison for New Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming. And I really wanted to say thank you to the GISCO meeting organizers for adding me to the agenda. They did that in real short order and very efficiently, so thank you. The training video webpage for National Map Products and Services was recently updated and revamped and released to the public, and this is very, very recent. And so I wanted to share it with you all today, so you're aware of the new webpage. So I will go ahead and share my screen. Okay, you should be seeing a web page that says USGS training at the top. Can everybody see that? Let's see here. Could someone out in the room raise their hand if you can see the web page?
Okay. Carol, we can see it.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. I didn't hear anything. All righty.
We're keep muting ourselves. So.
Okay, thanks. All righty, so just gives a little bit of background here. So as one of the cornerstones of the USGS National Geospatial Program, the National Map is a collaborative effort among the USGS and other federal, state, and local partners to improve and deliver topographic information for the nation. The National Map is a collection of mapping products and services produced by the National Geospatial Program. And the video lessons, which are accessible through this webpage, make it easier for geospatial data users, scientists, and the public to understand the complexity and richness of the National Map services, applications, interfaces, data, and tools. The video topics include, but are not limited to, using 3D elevation program or 3D data, the National Hydrography data set, National Map viewers and applications, topographic maps, 3D collaboration tools, and Earth Explorer. So there are lots of topics that are covered under the videos. It's easy to access the web page. You can do a search on the words National Map Training Video, and it will bring up the correct URL, which would be right here. Click on it, it will take you right to the web page. And at the top of the page, you'll see a series of lesson titles and images. And these are actually showing you the newest videos that have been produced. For example, lesson 15F on streamflow, lesson 10E2 on using LASTIC to decompress Lidar. Lesson 1 is an introduction to using the National Map products and services. And lesson 10B3, this is actually the newest training video, and it talks about clipping LAST data and creating derivative products in ArcGIS Pro. If you'd like to see that same list, but instead of having more a visual representation, you could actually see the list of videos that are on the new category here. Okay, so as we go down the page, you'll see that there's a set of 6 images here. And so what we did was there are 51 videos overall, and they were grouped into different categories. And so, for example, if you would like to see the videos that are related to elevation, you would click on the image, the nice image related to elevation, leads you right to this page, and it shows you the videos that are related to elevation topics such as 3-depth, products and services, and how to use 3-depth data in various software applications. Each one of these subpages will have a nice description at the top to let you know what the videos pertain to on each page. And so, for example, there's a nice list here of videos that start with lesson 10E1 pertaining to products and services of the 3D elevation program. Another one on hydro flattening and hydro enforcement and DEMS. And then we get into the lesson 10B1 series. Those pertain to using 3-depth data in ArcGIS Pro. If we go down a little further, we're into the lesson 10C series, and that series pertains to the use of 3-depth data in Global Mapper. So there's quite a list here in terms of videos pertaining to the use of 3-depth data. Just to take a look at another category, for example, there are instructional videos related to hydrography. And so just to give you an idea of what this list looks like, there's lesson 15A, the watershed boundary data set. And then the next one is lesson 15B, NHD plus high resolution data. And so again, you have a nice listing of training videos here pertaining to hydrography data. Now on these subpages, there's also a little bit of additional information here. There's something called a facts block, which makes some pertinent statements related to, say, the hydrography program. And then there are some additional links here under where it says additional video resources. This is really the textual description of the 6 visual categories on the front page, but some people relate to text better than images. So that's just an additional way to tie into the videos. There is also a YouTube playlist for all of the videos. And so if we go to the playlist, now you'll see that the videos are listed in order of the lesson number. So lesson 1 being the first shown here, and then lesson 3, etc. And so this is just a numeric list of the videos, and it's another way to access them too. The webpage also has some links on the left side of the page to additional information related to the National Geospatial Program, which it can also be handy too. So just know that those links are there. And, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to cover. Just wanted to be really quick, and to let everyone know that there is this new version of the web page there for the training videos, and it's easy to access and easy to use. And just to go back to this search that I did one more time, just to say, it's very easy to find the web page. You can just search on National Map Training Video, and it'll bring that URL right up for you, and go right to the training video page. And I also did insert a link into the chat just so everybody would have that, and it's handy for you. And with that, that's really what I wanted to cover today. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Carol. I'll leave it open for questions.
Do you have a rough idea of what the percentage of the 3D program is completed, 3D?
For the entire country, you know, off the top of my head, I wouldn't, that'd be a guess for me, and I don't have the most current number. However, I'm not sure who's speaking, but if you can provide me your contact information, I'm happy to send something to you.
That's okay. How about Colorado? Sorry. How about Colorado, Wyoming, and New Mexico? What percentage in your area?
Well, you know, we're very fortunate over those three states because the acquisition for the LiDAR has been funded. And so we're in the progress of, if we, you know, we may have projects that we've currently completed and then other projects that are still in progress. And so let me go to something else here, and this would help.
So Carol, I believe the country is 80% covered. That doesn't mean it's published, but it is collected or in process, but I believe it's up to 80%.
Oh, thanks, Darcy. Yeah, thanks. I don't have the most recent graphics, so I didn't want to say thank you.
Yeah. And when you're ready, we have another question, but I'll wait till you're done answering.
Oh, okay. Let me go. So I'm going to a website that the U.S. Interagency Elevation Inventory, and this is really the result of a collaboration of a number of federal agencies, including USGS and NOAA. Really has a lot to do with the establishment and maintenance of this particular website. But if we were to say, search on Denver. Sorry, it's the pressure. Take it correctly with everyone's eyes upon my screen. Okay, here we go. All righty. Okay, so this is a really great way to see. Now here. To check on LiDAR coverage, you know, all across our states. And I like this because you can actually view, for example, we have this 2020 Dr. Cog Colorado QL2 LiDAR project that is underway. And it's nice to be able to go to the website here. Now, I search for a specific location such as Denver. If you broaden your search, you'll see more of the coverage. But we are very fortunate in Colorado because actually we have projects that have been completed or in progress. And, you know, that's great for us because that means that we will have total LiDAR coverage for the state. For New Mexico, the same thing. We are working also in New Mexico with some collaborators who conducted projects independent of 3D, and they are contributing their data to the national map. And so hopefully we will be able to accept that as meeting our standards and contribute it to the program. The same thing in Wyoming. The coverage is planned for acquisition over the entire state. And so we will have that data. But again, those projects are either complete or in progress at this point.
Okay, so a question online. Did you mention that geologic maps are part of the national map?
No, I didn't.
Okay, but you can search on USGS geologic maps and you actually get to the geologic map database. So if you're looking for geologic maps, go there.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Okay, well, Carol, thank you so much. I'm gonna step away from the computer really quick and I will be right back to do the 4Ls discussion.